And you hug them all, and you tell them that you love them. And they're asking, my oldest is asking so many questions. She heard the explosions. She wants to know what's going on. Who are this? Until this day, she calls them the Hamasim. The Hamasim. She says, why don't the Hamasim just talk? Why don't they just talk to us? Use your words. Why don't they use your words, their words? And I'm like, listen.
Welcome back to another episode of Inspiration for the Nation. This week, I have two soldiers at the front lines, and they have garnered probably over 100 million views together on social media, and they are spreading light and truth. And first off is Arky Staiman, who is one of the most happy people that I know, and he's in one of the worst places. And he talks about his experience and gives me chazek. And the interview after that is with Rudy Rochman, who was actually supposed to interview him October 31st. I hope we'll still do it in person, but he's been all over every single news channel describing what he saw when he first got there and his message for the world. You'll also hear about TWILLORY, and you will hear about the daily Aliyah book that you definitely should get. This week's episode is in memory of Shimon Dovid ben Yaakov Shleima, as well as Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe. First off, my conversation with Arky, and obviously stick around for my conversation with Rudy. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Okay, one of the voices of Klal Yisrael now is Arky. Arky, I don't even know your last name. What's your last name?
Staiman, Arky Staiman.
Arky Staiman. Arky, could you just give us a little background, where you're from and how you got to your position to where you are right now?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm originally from Baltimore, made Aliyah in 2010, came here for yeshiva, never left, basically. I was in Hesder, which means it was a joint Army and yeshiva program, 5 years. So I was in Hesder. I drafted into the paratroopers unit because that was like, being a paratrooper as an American was like, that's the coolest place to go. So I ended up there as a paratrooper and served from 2011 to 2013. We had, thank God, in my family, 3 generations make Aliyah in about a year and a half. So me, my parents, and my grandparents all made Aliyah. So we're all here. My whole family, immediate family's here, and cousins and uncles and aunts are coming little by little, thank God. And got married, lived in Haifa, had a meal with you a couple of years ago.
Yes, and, good times.
Thank God. So my wife was studying in the Technion at the time. We lived in Haifa and moved to Tekoa about 5-6 years ago, right outside of Jerusalem. Little hippie town outside on a hilltop outside of Jerusalem, outside of Bethlehem. So I've been living there. And when I left the Army, I got put into a different unit. Most people continue with what they were doing in the Army, in Miluim and reserves. When I left the Army, just became a regular person. I'm a tour guide. I give fun tours, Jerusalem-based tours, kid-centered, all that. I'm going to totally use this platform to give myself a shout out.
Yeah, totally. Plug away.
Israel with Arky. So I give tours that are kid-centered, and we have a lot of fun, and we have games and all that kind of stuff in Israel, Jerusalem-based. And my ADHD takes me to all these places, and I don't even remember what we're talking about anymore.
Could you take me back to when you heard the news of the start of this war?
Yeah, so I went to shul like a normal Simchat Torah, and something strange happened when I was in shul. Somebody walked in and said, "Just so everybody knows, the closest bomb shelter is in the shul next door. If a siren goes off, go there." And I'm like, that's weird. We live in Tekoa, and if you open up a map of Tekoa, like, we couldn't be any further from Gaza or Lebanon, or, I mean, if Jordan was shooting rockets, maybe, but like, we're in the middle of kind of the desert near Beit Lechem. Like, why would there be rockets? And then obviously started asking around, and from then on, it was just like these rumors of there's terrorists came into Israel from Gaza. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, that's horrible. There were probably like tens of people killed in this terrorist attack. And people are talking about how gruesome it is and how the fighting is still going on. It's not like usually terrorist attacks in Israel, a minute, 2 minutes, it's over. And they're talking about it's ongoing and we're in the middle of a kafo, right? So it's like, we're still dancing, but people are going outside to talk to each other about what's going on. And then there's one person in our shul who's got political connections and he's got this like sad face on. And I'm like, this is serious. Now, once again, when I thought serious, I'm like, this is serious. Probably 30, 40, 50 people might have been killed, God forbid. You know what I mean? In nobody's mind could we have ever even imagined the scale of this thing. So that's kind of how it went down. And then the rumors come out. So I run home where my in-laws are here for Chag from America, from Teaneck. They don't know what to do during a siren. They're with my kids in the park. They wouldn't know what to do. I run home, and that's my first thought. I'm not thinking about anything else. Go home. I tell them, listen, I remember saying these words. I said, a war is breaking out in Israel, something we haven't seen since the Yom Kippur War. I said that. I don't know what made me say that because it's like, it was so in the beginning, we knew nothing. But I could tell it was serious. On the way home, you're hearing the rockets explode. And then it's all connecting. Like, okay, you're hearing the rockets explode. Israel's at war. There's a terrorist attack. Like, this is serious. So I tell my wife, get the bomb shelter prepared just in case. Bring the kids home. And I said, I'm going to go back to shul because there's nothing. What are we going to do? Sit at home for all of Simchat Torah? Like, we didn't know what was going on. So I said, you know what? Let me just take my phone just in case. I'm in reserves, You have to have your phone on you in case something like that happens. So I go to shul, think to myself, there's no way they're going to call me up. My unit is really only called up when things are really, really bad. When there's, need for people to go into the field and to really, unfortunately, collect and make sure that all the Jewish soldiers come back for burial and all the Jewish people come back for burial. So it's really like last case scenario, last resort, we get called. And to my surprise, in the middle of the liot, even though a lot of my friends were still dancing there. And by the way, the hakafot totally changed, right? We went from like, obviously there was still simcha, it's still hakafot. But we were singing songs, Shomri Mafkei, Rafkei Lecha, Sim Shalom, right? Everything was about Shalom, was about Shomer, was about, this war that's going on. So even the Simchat Torah kind of got enveloped by what was going on. I get the call. I run home. I tell my wife and kids. I pack. Oh my God, I did such a terrible job packing. Like you think like you have to go immediately and you're like, okay, I'm going for a month. I'm going for a day. I'm going for 2 months. I have no idea. I still don't know. Right. So I just shove everything in my backpack. And now obviously I'm like, Gail, my wife's name is Avigail. Gail, remember when I forgot this? Could you maybe bring it to me? So that was kind of the first few moments. Yeah.
What's the goodbye like to your family? It's such an unknown. What are you thinking when you're saying goodbye?
Yeah, it's emotional. It's very, very emotional. You're giving your kids hugs. They don't know what. I have a 5, 3, and a 1-year-old. Thank God. 5-year-old is Zimra. She's a girl. 3-year-old is Netzach, and then the baby is Keter. And you hug them all and you tell them that you love them. And they're asking, my oldest is asking so many questions. She heard the explosions. She wants to know what's going on. Who are this? Until this day, she calls them the Hamasim. The Hamasim. She says, why don't the Hamasim just talk? Why don't they just talk to us? Use your words. Why don't they use your words, their words? And I'm like, listen, some people, it's too far for that. And so you're trying to explain. You're trying to calm. It's a balance, right? You want to make it emotional, but you also don't want to get anybody too excited, right? And it's also logistical. Like, it's Simchat Torah. I have to get in my car and drive. Like, what am I bringing with me? What am I not bringing with me? What do I need? What do I not need? So it's just a wave of a mix of emotions.
What's been the morale of the army we're seeing a bunch of clips and videos, and you're doing an amazing job just putting out positivity, but what is the emotions that is it scary? Is it happy? What is it? What's going on?
Whenever I give tours to families with kids, the kids always ask me this question, and we always talk about the army because they love talking about that stuff. They always ask, they always ask that question: is it scary? And the mashal I give is like LeBron James in the fourth quarter of the finals game, and he's told, "You're gonna get the ball. You ready?" And we're like, and of course he is. You know what I mean? He's LeBron James. He's trained his whole life for this. He wants the ball. That's where we're at. That's where the soldiers at. We're trained for that. We didn't want any of this to happen. But now that this has happened, we're trained, we're prepared, we're equipped, and we're happy to be serving and protecting. So it's like, give us the ball and let us do what we got to do. You know what I mean? And obviously it's not like that because war takes a long time and we're 2 weeks afterwards and we're in and out of missions. But as you know from the news, we're not full scale invasion of Gaza as of now. Right. So we're waiting for the ball. Everybody here is asking for the ball. You know what I mean?
Right.
That makes sense.
What's interesting is like on any content that I'm seeing from soldiers, it's like how you guys could pick up the rest of Klal Yisrael. And the rest of Klal Yisrael who aren't in the army are like, what can we do for the soldiers? Do you guys need peanuts? We'll give you guys peanuts and like the most random things ever, like your guys are getting.
It's true.
It's like
it's
interesting.
True. Am Yisrael is stepping up like crazy. And the truth is that that's the way it's supposed to be. We're communicating to you what we need from you. You're communicating to us like what you can give, and we're one. You know what I mean? There isn't Israelis. I just got a whole donation of new shoes for our whole unit from Jews from America, and it's like, so nobody's asking the question like, why would they be sending Israel? Like, it's so obvious to everybody in our unit, even the most Israelis who have never met an American Jew in their lives. Is like, it's of course, like, yeah, these American Jews have our back, and the world Jewry, and not just Jews, the world. We feel like, at least the surroundings that we surround ourselves with, and we know that there's so much negativity out there that we're blocking out right now, and we know that we're not burying our heads in the sand. But we see so much love. And I could go on for hours, dude, like gas stations and major junctions have been turned into rows of barbecue pits on the sides of the roads for anybody who just wants to come and take. I haven't eaten army food in a week and a half. I've been here for a week and a half. I haven't eaten any army food. Like, we have barbecues every day. I mean, the socks and the underwear, it's endless. It's totally endless. And so, yes, you guys are giving us strength and we're giving you strength. That's the way it should be. I think that that's how it's supposed to be. I think maybe we've lost that because Israel hasn't. The Jewish people, when was the last time we faced something like this so big and so strong that unified us so much? So we feel it. We really feel it.
Yeah, I'm 31. I've never felt more unified in Klal Yisrael. Like, you see different sects of Klal Yisrael that I don't say hated, but like, we're not buddy 2 weeks ago, and now they are literally dancing with each other, and they're saying, "I'll stop everything to protect you, to help you, whatever I can do." Like, I've never seen that much achdus in my life.
I don't think I have either, and it's so beautiful. Like, the only time I can compare it to is the 3 boys that were kidnapped. I think this is on a whole nother level. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but we're dancing at this gas station that's providing us just tents full of hamburgers. And there's a group of people sitting around singing songs about Hashem, Afilu Ba'astara, like Hasidic songs about how Hashem is with us through the darkest times. And you look around, it's like, there's a chassid there, hugging soldiers. There's a girl, low top cut, like not seemingly from, singing these songs with us. There's a guy in a banana suit. There's just absolutely everything. Everybody's there. Sephardim, Ashkenazim. There's no words. There's no words for what I'm seeing. And I have to say, as much as it's like gushy, feely, it feels so nice. Like, I had just come back from a very difficult mission on the Gazan border 15 minutes before that. I can't tell you that I was in the best place mentally or emotionally. And it brought me up. It brought my spirits up. It like totally changed the night for me. So like 15 minutes ago, I was doing the most horrific, heinous things, seeing terrible things. And now I'm dancing with Am Yisrael. And so it works. It's not just fuzzy feelings. It works.
Wow. So it's something that I've seen is, because I'm on a bunch of chats, and my personal mission for the past 2 weeks has been nonstop to provide as much as positive and uplifting content for people. Right. And the amount of feedback that we've been getting, it's not just me, there's a whole team here, but like the amount of feedback from people thanking us for not showing the negative or the, graphic kind of stuff is wild. So someone in your position who, unfortunately, you have to see the graphic, you have to deal with the graphic, unfortunately, and it's such a holy job to do. What words of comfort could you give people that are on this end traumatized from the things that they've seen or just the fears that they have? You're there and you're obviously a very positive person. What could you say to uplift them and to make them feel better?
Right. Wow. It's not easy. There's videos, endless videos of atrocities. And I honestly haven't been watching them. I haven't been seeing them, and none of us are. None of the soldiers are. We have this ability, this gift to be able to go into our job and do what we have to do. And I don't know if I explained what we do. I don't know how much you want me to say what we do, but
you could explain it. You could explain it. You touched on it, but you could explain a little more.
So basically, our job is to make sure that if anything happens to any Jew, usually it's in wartime. So if you think about like Zaka, that makes sure that after a terrorist attack, all the body and body parts are collected and brought to Kvura, brought to burial. Our job is basically Zaka under fire in enemy territory. And usually we don't even respond to terrorist attacks, but because obviously this was so different, of course we were a part of it. We go in, we see the atrocities, and we do our job, and then we leave, and we don't put it behind us because we process it, we talk about it, we think about it, and that's it. And if I see a guy watching videos of atrocities, I'm like, dude, we don't need that. We were just there. Like, we need to be able to come out of it. And the truth is that we are. The soldiers are. You guys, on the other hand, you're on social media. So you're stuck in this trap of videos after videos after videos. I don't have to lecture you on how these algorithms work to try and suck us in, and to make us watch again and more and more and more and more. And so there's two things going on here. There's what social media and what Hamas wants us to be doing these few weeks. And there's what we need to be doing in these weeks, right? We need action. We need positivity. We need light. We need togetherness. Then there's what Hamas wants us to be doing. And that's sitting at home in our beds with the covers over our shoulders and just bawling our faces off for hours and hours at a time. It's not going to help anybody. And I realized that very early, and it's not just me. The whole army, I think, feels that like we're actually have an easier job because when we're working, we're involved, we're doing. And I think honestly, it's the same with Chesed. Ask anybody from Lakewood or from any community that's been packaging packages for soldiers. That's what you're thinking about. That's what you're involved in. You're in it. You're good. You're putting up a wall to all the rest of that stuff. And if all you're doing is sitting at home and just watching all the atrocities, then you're more exposed to it than I am, literally removing the bodies from the atrocities. Your emotions are going crazier than we are. And don't be more scarred than me, okay? I get to be scarred here. I don't want you guys to be scarred. And by watching those videos, you can easily be traumatized and scarred. So I was like, guys, we need to be out of that for a little bit. A lot of it. We need to take a break. And anybody who's here listening to this and has been spending hours on social media just scrolling through the hate comments and the videos and the atrocities, it's not what we need right now. Take it from somebody who sees the atrocities live. It's not what we need. It's not going to help. We need to be doing.
So I know, I mean, even setting this up, thank you so much for giving me your time, because I know you're literally in between missions.
Yeah.
And I'm very, but we both felt that this is important, and Klal Yisrael needs to hear what you have to say. So thank you. I just want to end off with, I mean, obviously we'll include show links in the show notes. People should go follow you because you're spreading light and spreading goodness. And I love that every day you're like giving us a different mission. Yeah. So if for the people watching, the people listening, you kind of, told us like, don't, scroll on social media. Don't sit in your bed. What's the positive? What should we be doing right now? Like, what's our one call to action right now?
Wow. So like you said, I've been doing every day a kind of a new call to action every day. And I think that's the stuff that people need is what should I be doing? And there isn't one answer to it. I'll answer it with a story.
Sure.
I was telling you about this circle where we're all singing and dancing at the gas station. Well, right next to it is a barber shaving soldiers' heads. And it's like this barber who's sitting at home figuring, what can I do for Am Yisrael? Figured out a way to do something for Am Yisrael. If a barber can figure out what Am Yisrael needs, so can you. So we all have professions, right? You're doing it right now. You've got podcasts. You're spreading the light. You're spreading these videos. That's your tafkid right now, right? And if somebody's job is a mental health professional, then maybe that person's tafkid is to reach out to people who need somebody to talk to. And and it doesn't even have to be what you do for a profession. So much of life is just looking inside and being like, what makes me special? What do I bring to the table? So that's my call to action. Everybody look inside. What makes me special? And is that something I can figure out a way to give to Am Yisrael for free right now, right? Like if the barber can do it, so can you. I don't know what you're doing at home, but I know that you have some special talent, some special ability that you bring to the table. Figure out what that is. Figure out how you can make a need for Am Yisrael. It could be Jews in Israel. It could be Jews in America. It could be Jews across the world. Whatever we need, you figure that out. Not everybody can shave the soldiers' heads, but you can do something. So I'm going to continue trying to do call to actions. I've got a new video out about spending Shabbat meals together with each other. You guys are going to see that soon. We're going to keep on collaborating, but find that something special that you have in you and use it for good, at least until this war's over, and then continue using it for good afterwards too.
Arky Staiman, thank you so much. And I have a request. Amir Tashem, very soon, when the third base of Mikdash is there and we're all dancing, I just want to be able to dance with you a little. That's my request to you.
Let's do it. I'm so excited.
Amazing.
Okay. And another thing I want to say is this war is going to end. I want you guys all to plan a trip. That's the next thing.
Yes.
Plan a trip to Israel. Come as soon as you can. This is going to be over. We're going to get through this. We're going to get over this. And that's how we're going to show that we win. You're not disconnecting Am Yisrael from Eretz Yisrael. We're going to just deepen our roots. So that's what I got for you.
Love it. Thank you so much, Arky.
All right, guys. Bye.
I don't know if you noticed, but I teared up over there. And next up, we have my conversation with Rudy. I've been planning to talk to him for months. Unfortunately, that is probably going to get postponed, and I will have him another time. But more importantly, we're talking about his experience with the war, and he does describe the feelings when he was kidnapped himself, and him understanding somewhat what is going on with the people who are kidnapped, and also his message for the world. You're going to hear about it. But before then, I first need to tell you about two things. First off, the Daily Aliyah book, so many of you have bought it and you are loving it, and kudos to you. You went through Parshas Bereshis every single day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It goes through each Aliyah and you get tapped into the Parsha. But more than just that, it gives you chizuk, which is something we all need so much right now. Mosaic Press did an incredible job. The rabbi did a great job. It is an incredible book. It's Parshas Noach this week. This episode is being released after Parshas Noach, but whenever part we are in the Parsha, whatever you're listening to this, I highly recommend you get Daily Aliyah book, and also proceeds go to Daily Giving, which we know how incredible they are and how many organizations they help. So go to dailyaliyah.org. You can find the link in the show notes. And also, I have been rocking my TWILLORY. It happens to be the t-shirt I'm wearing I want to do it for the style. I want to wear a green t-shirt. This is not from TWILLORY, which someone's like, why aren't you wearing a TWILLORY shirt? I don't only own TWILLORY clothing, but most of my clothing is through TWILLORY. And if you are a fan of inspiration for the nation, use the code word INSPIRE on TWILLORY.com. When you spend over $139, you'll get $18 off. They make the best pants in the world. They make incredible, incredible suits. I don't have it long enough to say the best suits in the world, but I probably in like a few months from now, I will be saying that. I wear it every single Shabbos. I've had so many friends buy it and thank me. You'll thank me too. Use code word INSPIRE on TWILLORY.com. And one more thing, right before my conversation with Rudy, he does go through a few details of what he saw. So this might be a little triggering for some people. I still encourage you to listen to it. We made sure not to get too much into the details, but I do want to give you that warning before. And now here's our conversation. We have the opportunity to spend some time with Rudy Rochman right now, and he's going to explain who he is. It happens to be sad because Rudy and I are supposed to do a full-blown interview, which we'll do it one day, but we're supposed to do it next week. Hopefully, God willing, the war is going to end. But Rudy, could you tell us who you are, a little quick background, and what you've seen so far?
Sure. So my name is Rudy Rochman. I'm an activist for the Jewish people in Israel. I would say there are 5 particular problems that I use all of my energy and time to fix and heal. Number 1, I would say it's anti-Semitism from the far right to the far left and all in extremes. Dealing and fighting it. Number 2 is empowering and inspiring and giving the tools to the younger generation of Am Yisrael to be able not to just practice Judaism, but to put Judaism into practice. Number 3, I would say, is a lack of vision and mission statement that we have as a generation for the Jewish people, and to find a way for us to collectively decide what the next chapter of Jewish history is going to look like. Number 4, it's the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, helping bring the two communities together for us to transcend our differences, to end the injustices that we both experience, which are different, and achieve our aspirations, which are also different and not mutually exclusive. And number 5, it's reconnecting all the dispersed of Israel, all the tribes of Israel that have been displaced and disconnected, and to bring us back to the consciousness and awareness of each other in order to reunite in our generation. So those are the 5 things that all that I do is focus on fixing those things.
Okay, and I've seen you literally on every single news network, and maybe it's a drop repetitive, but I think it's important for our listeners to hear what your experience was right in the beginning of this war and what you saw there.
Absolutely. So I've been out of the army for 10 years now. And as combat soldiers, even if you're out of the army, you still have to serve on the reserves until age 40. And so I've been serving on the reserves a few times a year. We have training to make sure that we're still fit, that we still know how to use a weapon, that we know how to work as a team. And we were actually supposed to have a reserve miluim in a month and a half. So it was on my calendar to be back from Africa from our next trip, working on our documentary. And Friday night, I was with my family doing Shabbat. Saturday morning, we wake up. It was still Sukkot. It was Shabbat morning. And I get a call from my officer saying, "You're being jumped to the base. Come immediately." So we had already seen at that point a few videos of what had happened. We didn't know the extent of what had happened, but we knew there was some sort of terror attack, which unfortunately is nothing new to Israel. But on this degree, with kidnappings, with people, cut up into pieces and burned alive and grenades thrown into like a bunch, like just the gruesome footage that was coming out was unheard of before. And so we immediately rushed over to the base. I got there within maybe 2 hours. Once we arrived on base, they gave us our gear, they gave us our weapon, and within a few minutes after we had everything, they put us on a Hummer and they drove us down to the south. We had no idea where they were taking us. They didn't tell us we're going here or there. They said, "There's fighting and we need to join." So we were in the Hummer. And at some point, we started to pass where there were no more civilians. There were only police cars that had created these checkpoints. And we can see all the police officers like cheering us on and clapping. We weren't really understanding even then what we were about to witness. And then at some point we start driving and we just see cars on the right and the left blown up, flipped over, still burning. And then starting with the bodies blown up to pieces, shot dead on the floor. Some of them were terrorists, some of them were civilians. And it just gets worse as more you're going, the worse it's getting. And it's looking like an extreme war zone, something that you would see only in the movies. And finally, we get to this village called Kfar Aza. It's on the border of Gaza, and it was one of the hardest hit, if not the hardest hit village in this whole massacre. And we get there, and we were waiting for about 40 minutes before we entered. And this is where it started to get extremely real. I looked on the side when we were walking, and I can see maybe like 8 bodies on the floor with a tarp over it. But the tarp didn't cover their shoes, and I could see the IDF military boots. And I realized, wow, those are 8 soldiers that died, their bodies are right in front of me. And then all of a sudden we see IDF special forces coming out of that village, which we could hear all the gunshots within it nonstop happening. So understanding that there was a war zone happening in there. And a few special forces come out with 2 babies. Each soldier was holding onto a baby, and then a family of an Israeli family that was there that was walking out. And you could just see the blankness on their face, just like they were still in shock of what had happened. And they were one of the few families that had survived. And so every second it's getting worse and worse and worse. And finally it was our time to go in. There was a tank that actually went in before us, and we go inside, and again, more and more bodies. Like, it was hard to walk in a place without bodies, like everywhere, of men, women, children, elderly, civilians mostly, but some terrorists as well. Some of them burned, like the whole body is black. I mean, you could imagine like what that would look like. That's what it actually looks like. And we eventually got to the point that our unit was needed. And for 4 days we were there. For 4 days, it was nonstop shooting at us, shooting back and forth with Hamas militants that were still hiding there, saving the few civilians that were still around. And you could imagine 4 days in the south of Israel during what is just after the summertime. I mean, there was a stench like none other. And unfortunately, the bodies were rotting away because they couldn't come in to pick them up. But after 4 days, we were able to clear the area. And eventually Zaka, the unit in the army that takes care of dead bodies, came. And I'm sure they probably need a lot of therapy for what they witnessed, because if that's what we witnessed from the outside and within a few homes, I mean, there's horrendous things that had happened that we didn't even get to see that they saw. And we heard some horrible stuff, even just describing how bad it is. It's like rated R. And so you do what you need to do with your audience. But, that's what we saw. And of course, everyone can take it differently. I take it as, this is why we're here, to protect and to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And that gives me the strength to continue. But, whenever we look back and we think of what we saw, it's like it hurts, it's not, you can't unsee that. After 4 days, we got out. And since then, we've been on different training bases. I can't specify where exactly we are, where we've been, but preparing for the next step, which we don't know if it's into Gaza, into Lebanon, but we have to be ready for either or both. And that's what we've been doing for the past few days. We've been in operations preparing.
What's your emotion? Because you have that I guess, there's obviously a plan, but there's an unknown as this war develops. Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling passionate to go in? Like, what's your feeling about it?
Definitely not scared. I think for me as an individual, I got rid of the emotion of fear a long time ago. I have full emunah in Hashem, and I know everything that I'm put through is a test, and a test that I have to overcome. And even if it's difficult, it's the moment to make the right decision, not the easy decision. So I don't have fear going into this. I also know, Baruch Hashem, that I'm protected and that there are always miracles happening around me, and I'm very cognizant of them and appreciative of them. And I choose to use my time on this earth to bring lights to whatever I can do and to fulfill my tikkun. But we obviously aren't excited, because if you go into war, not everyone's coming back out. These are brothers, in arms that we've known for years, for decades, fought together, laughed together, went to each other's weddings, went to each other's children's brit milot. Like, this is our really close friends. And, if we go to war, some of them might not come back. So we don't want to go to war. And in addition, fighting the enemy of Hamas and Hezbollah, it's not an enemy that they'll go to a battlefield and it's soldier over soldier. They fight among civilians. So it'll also force civilians to be killed. And no one wants to see that. No one wants to do that. So none of us are excited for this. But at the same time, we know, and all of us truly believe, that Israel has to strike back at Hamas, not just to strike, but to take Hamas out once and for all. I don't want to go into another war in another 4 years, and then in another 4 years after that. I served in the army during Amud Anan, an operation in 2012. I got out in 2013. My friends went into Tzuk Eitan in 2014. Like, how many times do we need to go through this? So the feeling of the soldiers here is we got to take Hamas out once and for all to free the Israelis and the Palestinians from Hamas. And we have to save, obviously, the civilians that are still captured there, and who knows what's happening to them. And I can definitely understand and relate to that, as someone that 2 years ago was kidnapped and was thrown in a cage for 3 weeks. And I know how they're feeling right now, and I only hope we can get them out as soon as possible.
And I hope to talk to you about your experience on a longer form when we meet in person after we have victory very soon. You have a lot of experiences, I guess, in terms of the Jewish people, and I guess being one of the leads of the PR of the Jewish people. Is how important would you say is there's a war, physical war going on, but also the, I guess, digital war going on? How important is it for us or people at home to do something about it?
It's definitely important. I mean, we were all raised with the term never again. My mother's side of the family are Sephardi Jews that had an experience in Morocco and Algeria, but my dad's side of the family, my grandparents were born in Poland and Belgium and survived the Shoah, and their entire families were exterminated. So for me, when I grew up with the term never again, it didn't mean you just say it, and because these sounds are coming out of your mouth, these vibrations out of your vocal cord, that it won't happen again. It's not a magic spell. It's a promise. It's a commitment. And it's a commitment that every generation says in order to take and then to fulfill. And unfortunately, as we see anti-Semitism rising in many places, most Jews, most Jewish leaders even, are making excuses, are saying, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it'll go away. Oh, it's just like a period of their time and then eventually it'll go back. Don't worry, we have, connections with the American government. Don't worry, like every excuse as to why not to take care of the problem. And this is really something that I faced when I got out of the army. I went to university and I realized that anti-Semitism was, prominent, and the way that they were convincing the general public of universities, which represents the future political and intellectual class of the next generation. People coming from universities are going to be the lawyers, the doctors, people in media, people in politics. So if those are the individuals in society that are going to have power and they're convinced the source of all problems is Israel and the Jewish people, what kind of morality are we giving our children? And so when I realized that this was happening and that we were basically doing nothing about it, and that the way they were spreading their message was using intersectionality. Now, the idea of intersectionality is that different minority groups can come together and unite, and with that unity would have more power. So in theory, they're absolutely correct, and oftentimes also in practice. But the way that intersectionality is being used by people who are anti-Israel and anti-the Jewish people is they're going to every single minority group, and they're convincing them that either their struggles is the same thing that Israel is doing to the Palestinians, or that Israel is even itself responsible for their struggles abroad. They'll go to the Black Student Union and say, you suffer from police brutality and racism. Well, we suffer from IDF brutality and Israeli racism. And they'll go even further by saying the IDF trains the New York State Police Department to kill Black people. Now, when someone hears that, it's ridiculous. Like, how could you make such a statement? You think that racism started in 1948? Then that police brutality started in 1948? Like, where did you even get that? But what do? They found one Israeli who was a Krav Maga instructor at age 40, who had done the army 20 years before, who gave a self-defense class to one precinct one time for 1 hour. And somehow we're going to connect all the dots. And now it's because of Israel. And they're doing this to every single minority group, Native Americans with white colonialism. They're going to try to pin Jews as white colonialists, apartheid in South Africa. They're going to do apartheid, which is interesting. It's like the left, the far left of America is basically, instead of looking in the mirror of what they've done in history, they're taking all that guilt, and instead of facing it, they're putting it onto the Jews in Israel. Apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, settler colonialism, that's all what white nations have done in the past, which obviously doesn't represent all white people, but the left feels very guilty of this, and instead of facing with that guilt, they're putting it on the Jews. And this is really what's going on. Now, in terms of this war, Hamas's goal has always been to find a way to make Israel look bad and obviously sacrifice its citizens in order to do so. I mean, most Hamas heads are billionaires, even the Palestinian Authority. And it's not because they did the right investments in Miami real estate before COVID or in cryptocurrency before the boom. It's because their business model is making sure that Palestinians will die, and they're going to get a lot of aid from the world, and that aid is either going to their pockets or to reinvest in weapons to keep the war going. So this is really what's happening, and they're increasing Palestinian casualties by shooting from civilian areas, forcing civilians to stay in areas that they know will be targeted, like forcing Palestinians to not be able to evacuate when Israel warns to evacuate. whether on an individual building or on an entire area. And this is not the first time that's been going, but we need to wake up to it. And I want to make it clear that this war that we're facing right now is not a war between Palestinians and Israelis. The Palestinian people and the Israeli people are not at war. It's not a war between Jews and Muslims or Jews and Arabs. We are not at war. It is a war between Hamas and the Israeli people. And Hamas's clear goal, even in their original charter, was we need to wipe out the Jews from the river to the sea. And once we finish that in Israel, we'll do that to the rest of the world. And we need to wake up to what Hamas is, and we need to get rid of Hamas to free both the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Very well said. And I know that you have very limited time because you are literally in between missions right now. I just want to end off. What's your message of hope for the Jewish people, or really anyone watching this? What idea could you share with us?
First of all, there is a reality that will exist where Israelis and Palestinians will be able to transcend. You know, as hard as it is now to see this and to deal with it, especially at the peak of our emotions on both sides, we all know there's no reality where Palestinians or Israelis will disappear. So this idea of pushing zero-sum game narratives of one side's the good side, one side's the bad side, which is happening on both sides, is not going to work. Now, of course, we as Jews have our aspirations, have our needs, have our requirements, have our self-determination aspirations of our collective civilization that we've had for generations, and we need to preserve and fulfill that, like Jerusalem being our capital, like the temple being built, like us having economic, military, and political control over our homeland. That is non-negotiable. But there are things that Palestinians need and want that can be achieved as well. And if you break down the aspirations of both populations, they don't actually contradict, and ending the injustices for both are important. And you know, as Jews, we have a mission statement of Tikkun Olam and Or Lagoim, healing the world and empowering the other nations, bringing light to the other nations that are living in darkness. Well, how about Tikkun Babayit Mabnei Dodim first? How about we first heal our own home with our own cousins? We should look at every human being living in our land as a guest or as family, and as our responsibility to make sure they live in a good reality. And that definitely includes Palestinians, which are our cousins. So I would say that there is a bright future ahead of us. We just have to wake up to that. And lastly, I think the Jewish people all around the world need to understand that with history comes a formula. 4,000 years of Jewish history. 4,000 years of whenever we are divided, separated, fighting each other, assimilating, and forgetting our purpose, those are the beginnings of the worst chapter of our extermination and persecution and oppression. Whenever we are united, empowered, fulfilling our purpose, and actually doing what we set out to do in this world, no matter what obstacle is in front of us, as impossible as may seem, we tend to overcome. It's like a cheat code, and we overcome all those struggles and are able to succeed. So now it's the time for our generation to realize that even if we might be different ideological tribes today with left-wing Jews, right-wing Jews, secular, religious Jews, okay, we were always different. We've always been tribal. But it's important for all those cells to know their role and to function together. Even though they may be different, we need to all function as one. Different organs, one body. It's time for Am Yisrael to unite and to fulfill its purpose.
That's really beautiful. You know, the commonality between all soldiers, and you're so articulate, so it's a pleasure to talk to you, is that, listen, we have a mission. We need to get rid of the evil, but at the same time, we want peace. We want to have a good world. And unfortunately, the media doesn't paint it like that. But I think the world is starting to see, when they're speaking to the soldiers or to the Jewish people, they understand that, like, hey, wait, maybe there's actually a bigger picture going on over here. So Rudy, thanks again for this. And I hope very soon to have you in person here, or maybe I'll be in Israel, and we'll continue for a longer form conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this week's episode. If you got this far on YouTube, go ahead and please leave the comment, Am Yisrael Chai. Unfortunately, our comments have become a cesspool for the amount of hate. At the time of this recording, we have been growing a lot because we've been sharing a lot, but we're sharing the positivity going on. We've with Hashem's help, garnered over 50 million views on the Living L'Chaim channel. With that amount, and at this point of airing, it's probably more, thank God. But the point is, there's so much hate that comes along, and we delete every single message that is so hateful. And unfortunately, there's the most anti-Semitism I've ever seen in my life is through our videos, our content. And it's like, we're just spreading nice content of like wisdom and now, like, it's crazy. It's sad. So I want you to say Am Yisrael Chai. It helps us. It helps me feel better and feel less hated by terrible people. It's probably Hamas. It's for sure Hamas and others who are just haters. Definitely go ahead and follow Arky, follow Rudy. They are both incredible. They are spreading so much light, and share this episode with someone who needs chizuk. I think it's important to not focus on the negativity, but also I wanted to interview two soldiers who are at the front lines. Like, we're all talking about the front lines, but I wanted to hear from them. And I personally felt so inspired after hearing these two people. There's no hate here. There's no hate here. We just want to get rid of the evil, the bad, and we want to go on with our lives. We want to serve Hashem. We want a reality, an existence, a world where there's happiness. And I think that's what the core of Living L'Chaim is all about. Mashiach should come very soon. Share this with someone that it could give chizuk to. Till next time, you can be inspirational. Living L'Chaim.